In this video, we're going to look at a fascinating CNBC interview with legendary investor Ron Barron, founder and CEO of Barron Capital, who believes SpaceX could become the largest company on the planet and says his firm could make hundreds of billions of dollars from its investment. I'll show you the interview clip first, and then I'll give you my detailed reaction and breakdown of everything Ron Barron said about SpaceX, Elon Musk, artificial intelligence, and the future of the space industry. And stick around until the end because I'll also share my in-depth analysis of two space stocks that I believe have massive upside potential. Let's hear what Ron Barron had to say.
Ron, welcome. It's great to see you today.
It's great to be with you.
So SpaceX is your largest holding in all of the Barron funds. I think you started buying in 2017. As of Friday, you had how much in shares of SpaceX?
$24 billion.
That's across all the funds?
Across all the funds.
Across all the funds, and that was
I'm
as
not
of
sure
the
if that's
open or the
24 or
close?
25 billion because we bought another billion on Friday.
Okay, so 25 billion, and that was as of Friday's close, before
Right.
this morning's gains?
Yeah. I think we're going to make hundreds of billions of dollars, but hundreds. But before that, I was on Friday evening speaking to Elon and to Dan Dees, who is the person at Goldman Sachs who is husbanding this deal. And I was congratulating Dan on what an incredible job Goldman Sachs and Morgan Stanley and JP Morgan have done with this underwriting. An incredible job, figuring out the allocation of it, figuring out how to stabilize the market, doing pricing it appropriately. I mean, it's amazing.
What did Elon have to say?
So when I was talking to him, one of the things I kept thinking about is after what he's accomplished so far, which everyone thought was not only improbable but impossible. He's being congratulated on this. And I'm thinking about from his point of view, he said, this is just getting started. This is just where we're starting of what this business is going to become. And when I was looking this morning on the news, it said that he thought that we would do $1 trillion of revenues in 2030, trillion. And last year was 19 billion, so 50 times. By 2030. And when I think about the opportunities this company has and how no one else, all you have to do is get the prospectus. It's 500 pages, so it's not that easy to go through. And it used to be they would give you red herrings, and there were little books, you could go through it and you can easily mark it up. But now, when I'm looking at these prospectuses, I have a prospectus like that, 500 pages. And to go through it, it's so hard to do it. But if you read that, and you get probably 20, 30, 40 pages in, you realize what they've done isn't possible for anyone else to accomplish. Not possible. And so he's at least 10 years ahead of everyone else as far as making satellites, as far as making rockets, as far as building networks. I mean, the opportunities that they have to change everyone's life, changing lives.
Do you think he felt a sense of satisfaction on Friday? Because obviously he's not driven by the same things as everybody else.
Well, if you're worth $1 trillion or $2 or $3 trillion or $5 trillion, what difference does it make? and that's not what he's interested in. He's trying to save humanity. And when I was listening to the interview that he did with Jamie Dimon on Friday night, I guess it was, or Thursday night, for the road show in the
Thursday.
JP Morgan headquarters. By the way, JP Morgan, that's the most incredible building I've ever been in my life. And so I was listening to the interview. And the last question was, so Elon, every time I talk with you, I learn something. Every time I talk with you, I learn something. And so what do you think about this? And he says, well, I'm hoping that some future AI will say, not a bad job for a human. So his goal is not the way other people's goals are outlined. And so when he's talking about what he's done so far, that's just the beginning. And so when I think about Starlink, and Starlink is, if you want to have some kind of broad distribution of wealth, if you want to have equal wealth, then people have to be smart. How do you get smart? You have to have the internet. How do you have the internet? When you live in the jungle, or you live in the desert, or you're flying, or you're in the ocean, how do you do that? And so what he's done is what he's creating, this is the internet for the entire planet.
What is that what excites you most about SpaceX? What is the aspect that gets you most fired up?
It's just everything. It's the Starlink is one The compute AI is another, making these chips less expensively than other people can make them and use them. The fact that you have this AI, with Anthropic, so his idea behind the AI, behind the large language models, behind Anthropic and ChatGPT, who, by the way, both of those people who found those companies, he hired them. He hired them and trained them. And then Google, Gemini. So when I think about those entities, and we have Grok inside. So what Elon said was, gee, the problem that we were going to have here, LLMs, large language models, that's software. You can do that. Other people can do that. It's hard, but you can do it. But other people can't do the rockets and can't do the giant rockets. And so when I think about what is on his mind, he says, okay, other people can do that. What can't they do? And what they can't do is they can't make compute. He's got the biggest compute in the world, cohesive compute down in Memphis. And now what he does is he says, I'm going to spend my effort right now on getting compute, which is what the barrier to these growth of these AI, artificial intelligence, LLMs is. I'll build a compute, and that will put me ahead. That will make me win.
Well, and it's almost a fight against the commoditization of any of these large language models down the road.
Yeah,
too.
so they're all going to get commoditized. Yes.
So it puts him in a different perspective, in a different place.
There is this giant market, though. It's trillions,
Everybody's
20 trillion, 25 trillion. Yeah, so, but what he's going to have is he's going to have this compute that other people need. So Anthropic, for example, has just gone from $9 billion of annualized revenues in December to $45 billion now for a 3 or 4 year old company, and they're going to go public for $800 or $900 billion.
Right, and they're paying, what is it, $1.25?
$1.25 a month.
$1 billion a month.
$15 billion a year.
Right.
They're paying. So what they do
to
is
SpaceX for use of the computing power.
So they go. He's a good guy. Good guy.
Dario Amodei. Yeah. He's under pressure from the U.S. government, the administration at this point.
I know. Well, the government has a right to be concerned when you develop something that can crack the code of everyone and find out where there's weaknesses and flaws. And you got to make sure that this doesn't get into the wrong hands. Mm-hmm. But we're to go back to what we have with this compute. Mm-hmm. Then what happens is that he comes to Anthropic, comes to Elon. Says,
are you an investor in Anthropic now?
No.
No. Okay.
I wish I was.
Will you be when they go public?
I don't know. I haven't been to visit him yet. I've been trying to arrange it. One of the guys who works with me, one of his best friends, went to go work for him, and we're supposed to go visit for maybe a month already. I haven't done it yet, but I will soon.
Right from the start, Ron Barron makes it clear that he is not just a casual investor in SpaceX. He reveals that SpaceX is the single largest holding across all of his funds, and that his firm owns roughly $25 billion worth of shares after adding another $1 billion following the company's public debut. That is an enormous position, even by institutional investing standards. What immediately stood out to me was the level of conviction Barron displayed. Most investors, even successful ones, tend to speak carefully when discussing future returns. Barron does the exact opposite. He openly says he believes they will make hundreds of billions of dollars from their SpaceX investment. Think about how bold that statement is. Most fund managers spend their careers trying to generate a few percentage points of outperformance. Here is Ron Barron talking about potentially generating hundreds of billions in gains from a single investment. That level of confidence tells you everything about how he views SpaceX's future. One of the most interesting parts of the interview comes when Barron talks about speaking directly with Elon Musk after the IPO. While many people would assume Musk was celebrating the successful launch of the stock, Barron describes a completely different mindset. According to Musk, this is just the beginning. That phrase really captures the entire philosophy behind Elon Musk's companies. Most executives view major milestones as destinations. Musk seems to view them as starting lines. The IPO was not the finish line. The IPO was simply another step toward a much larger objective. Barron then references Musk's expectation that SpaceX could potentially generate $1 trillion in annual revenue by 2030. To put that into perspective, the company reportedly generated around $19 billion the previous year. That would represent a staggering increase. Now, whether SpaceX actually reaches that figure is another question entirely. Personally, I think investors should always be cautious when evaluating extremely long-term projections. History is filled with ambitious forecasts that never materialized. But what makes SpaceX different is that many of the company's previous goals were also dismissed as unrealistic before eventually becoming reality. Reusable rockets sounded impossible. Mass satellite deployment sounded impossible. Private space launches at scale sounded impossible, yet SpaceX achieved all of them. That track record forces investors to take even the boldest projections seriously. Barron spends a significant amount of time discussing the company's prospectus, emphasizing that when you actually dig into the details, you begin to understand why he believes SpaceX has such a massive competitive advantage. His argument is simple: nobody else is even close. According to Barron, SpaceX is at least 10 years ahead of competitors in rocket technology, satellite deployment, and network infrastructure. Whether that lead is exactly 10 years or not is impossible to verify, but there is no question that SpaceX currently operates on a scale that competitors are struggling to match. This is where the interview becomes less about finance and more about technological dominance. Barron repeatedly returns to the idea that SpaceX has built capabilities that competitors cannot easily replicate. Not difficult, not expensive, impossible, at least in the near term. That distinction matters because investors often underestimate the value of technological moats. A great business is not just one that grows quickly. A great business is one that can grow quickly while preventing competitors from catching up. Barron clearly believes SpaceX has achieved exactly that. Another fascinating moment comes when the hosts ask whether Musk felt any personal satisfaction from the IPO. Barron's response reveals a lot about how he sees Musk. He essentially argues that financial success is no longer a meaningful motivator for someone whose wealth already reaches into the trillions. Instead, Barron believes Musk is driven by a much larger mission: saving humanity. Now that phrase can sound dramatic, but if you look at Musk's various ventures, there is a consistent theme running through them. Tesla focuses on sustainable transportation. SpaceX focuses on making humanity multiplanetary. Starlink focuses on global connectivity. His AI efforts focus on the future development and control of artificial intelligence. Whether you agree with his methods or not, the overarching vision remains remarkably consistent. Barron even references a comment Musk made about hoping that one day an advanced AI system will look back and say, "Not a bad job for a human." That quote perfectly captures Musk's personality. Most billionaires want recognition from their peers. Musk appears to want recognition from the future. The discussion then shifts towards Starlink, which Barron clearly views as one of the most transformative projects under the SpaceX umbrella. His argument is actually quite compelling. He suggests that access to information is one of the greatest equalizers in society. If people lack internet access, they lack educational opportunities, economic opportunities, and access to global knowledge. By extending internet connectivity to remote villages, deserts, oceans, aircraft, and underserved regions, Starlink could dramatically expand access to information for billions of people. Personally, I think this may be one of the most underappreciated aspects of the SpaceX story. Investors often focus exclusively on rockets because they are visually exciting, but Starlink may ultimately become the bigger business. The global demand for internet access is virtually limitless. Every new user represents another potential customer. Every underserved region represents a new market. If Starlink can maintain technological leadership, its long-term potential could be enormous. As the interview progresses, the conversation begins moving deeper into artificial intelligence. This is where Barron starts connecting multiple pieces of Musk's broader ecosystem together. Many people think of SpaceX, AI, and computing infrastructure as separate businesses. Barron views them as interconnected. His argument is that large language models themselves may eventually become commoditized. In other words, multiple companies will be able to build powerful AI systems. If everyone can build the software, then the real bottleneck becomes something else: compute. The massive computing infrastructure required to train and run advanced AI systems. Barron argues that Musk recognized this before many others did. Instead of focusing exclusively on software, Musk focused on securing computing power. The logic is straightforward. If AI companies need enormous amounts of computing resources, then whoever controls those resources gains tremendous leverage. This reminds me of previous technology cycles. During gold rushes, many fortunes were made selling tools rather than digging for gold. In the cloud computing era, infrastructure providers became some of the biggest winners. Barron appears to believe the same pattern could emerge in artificial intelligence. Rather than competing solely in AI applications, Musk may be positioning himself to own critical infrastructure that everyone else needs. The interview also touches on the explosive growth of AI companies like Anthropic. Barron highlights the company's rapid revenue expansion and notes the massive amounts being spent on computing resources. His point is not really about Anthropic itself. His point is about demand. Demand for compute is exploding. Demand for AI infrastructure is exploding. Demand for data processing is exploding. And according to Barron, Musk has strategically positioned himself at the center of that trend. What I found particularly interesting is how Barron continually frames Musk's strategy around identifying barriers that others cannot easily overcome. Anyone can attempt to build software. Few can build rocket networks. Few can build global satellite systems. Few can assemble massive computing clusters. Few can integrate all of those capabilities into a single ecosystem. That is really the recurring theme throughout the interview. Scale. The bigger the challenge, the more interested Musk becomes. And the bigger the challenge, the more convinced Barron becomes that competitors will struggle to catch up. By the end of the conversation, what becomes clear is that Ron Barron is not valuing SpaceX as a traditional aerospace company. He is valuing it as a collection of future-defining platforms: Starlink, launch services, satellite infrastructure, artificial intelligence compute, and potentially technologies that have not even fully emerged yet. Whether you agree with Barron or not, his investment thesis is remarkably consistent. He believes SpaceX is building foundational infrastructure for the future economy. If that thesis proves correct, then today's valuation may eventually look small. If it proves incorrect, then the expectations currently embedded into the story could become very difficult to satisfy. Personally, I think the most important takeaway from this interview is not the trillion-dollar revenue forecasts or the eye-popping valuation discussions. It is the reminder that the biggest investment opportunities often emerge when visionary founders are solving problems that most people still view as impossible. The challenge for investors is figuring out whether they are witnessing genuine innovation or simply getting caught up in a compelling narrative. Ron Barron clearly believes SpaceX belongs in the first category. And after listening to this interview, it is easy to understand why he remains one of Elon Musk's biggest believers. Now let's take a look at two space stocks that have quietly become some of the market's biggest winners and could still have enormous upside ahead. One company that has become a major player in this industry is Rocket Lab, ticker symbol RKLB. Rocket Lab has been one of the best performing space stocks in the market. Over the last year alone, the stock has surged approximately 372%. Now, whenever a stock rises that much, investors naturally begin asking the same question. Did I miss it? The answer depends entirely on what Rocket Lab becomes over the next decade. Because despite its incredible run, the company's long-term story may still be in its early stages. To understand why, you first need to understand what Rocket Lab is actually building. Many investors still think of Rocket Lab as simply a rocket launch company. That description is becoming increasingly outdated. Today, Rocket Lab is evolving into a diversified space infrastructure company with multiple revenue streams and several significant growth opportunities. Its launch business remains important. The company's Electron rocket has established itself as one of the most reliable small launch vehicles in the world. Rocket Lab has become the second most active launch provider in the United States, trailing only the dominant industry leader. That achievement alone is impressive. Launching rockets is one of the most difficult engineering challenges in existence. The barriers to entry are enormous, the technology is complex, the regulatory requirements are intense, the capital requirements are massive. Most companies never make it beyond the prototype stage. Rocket Lab not only made it through that stage, but built a commercially viable launch business that serves government and commercial customers. And that's where the investment story starts getting interesting. Because Rocket Lab is no longer satisfied with dominating the small launch market. Management is now focused on moving up the value chain. The company is developing its next-generation Neutron rocket, a medium-lift launch vehicle expected to make its first flight later this year. This could be one of the most important milestones in Rocket Lab's history. Why? Because larger rockets mean larger payloads. Larger payloads mean access to larger missions. Larger missions mean significantly bigger contracts, and bigger contracts typically come with higher margins. In simple terms, Neutron has the potential to transform Rocket Lab from a niche launch provider into a serious competitor for much larger opportunities across the space industry. Investors should pay close attention to this development because successful execution could dramatically increase Rocket Lab's addressable market. But here's what makes Rocket Lab especially compelling. The company is not relying entirely on launches to drive growth. In fact, one of the strongest parts of the business today is its rapidly expanding space systems division. This segment often receives less attention than the rocket launches, but it may ultimately become one of the company's most valuable assets. Rocket Lab manufactures critical components used throughout the space industry. These include spacecraft systems, solar arrays, communications equipment, sensors, and other specialized technologies required for satellite missions. Think about it this way: even if Rocket Lab isn't launching every satellite, it can still make money supplying the hardware that goes into those satellites. That creates a much broader business model, and it reduces dependence on launch activity alone. The numbers show just how important this segment has become. During the first quarter, Rocket Lab generated record revenue of approximately $200 million. Even more impressive was the company's backlog, which reached roughly $2.2 billion. A backlog is one of the most important metrics investors can watch because it represents future contracted business that has not yet been delivered. In other words, it provides visibility into future revenue. What stands out is the composition of that backlog. Approximately 58% comes from space systems and components, while the remainder comes from launch services. That tells us something important. Rocket Lab is steadily transforming into a broader aerospace and defense company rather than remaining solely a launch provider, and diversification like that can create a stronger and more resilient business over time. Another major reason investors are paying attention to Rocket Lab is its growing relationship with the United States government. Government contracts can be incredibly valuable. They tend to be large, they often span multiple years, and they can provide a level of revenue stability that purely commercial businesses sometimes lack. Rocket Lab has recently secured several significant agreements that highlight its growing importance within national security and defense initiatives. One of the largest is an $816 million prime contract with the U.S. Space Development Agency. Under this agreement, Rocket Lab will design and manufacture 18 advanced missile defense satellites. Think about the significance of that. The government is not simply hiring Rocket Lab to launch something, it is trusting the company to help build critical defense infrastructure. That represents a different level of confidence, and it reinforces the idea that Rocket Lab's expertise extends far beyond rockets. The company has also secured a $190 million contract involving 20 hypersonic test flights using its HASTE rocket. HASTE is a suborbital version of the Electron platform specifically designed for high-speed testing missions. As geopolitical tensions continue to drive defense spending around the world, these types of programs could become increasingly important. This is one reason why Rocket Lab occupies such an interesting position. It sits at the intersection of several powerful trends: the growth of commercial space, the expansion of satellite networks, the modernization of military systems, and increasing government investment in space-based infrastructure. Each of these trends alone could support meaningful growth. Together, they create a potentially powerful long-term tailwind. Another factor that should not be overlooked is the growing affordability of access to space. Historically, launching anything into orbit was extraordinarily expensive. That limited the number of organizations that could participate. Today, launch costs continue to decline. As costs come down, more companies can justify deploying satellites, more governments can afford space programs, more industries can find practical uses for space-based technology, and every time that happens, the addressable market for Rocket Lab expands. This is why many investors view the space economy similarly to how investors viewed the internet decades ago. At first, the infrastructure gets built, then new applications emerge, then entirely new industries appear. The biggest winners are often the companies that helped build the foundation. Rocket Lab is attempting to become one of those foundational companies. Of course, no investment is without risk. The stock's enormous run over the last year means expectations have increased significantly. Future growth must justify the valuation. The successful development and deployment of Neutron remains critical. Execution on large government contracts matters. Competition within the industry will continue to evolve. These are all factors investors need to monitor carefully. But when evaluating long-term opportunities, it's important to focus on what the business could look like 5 or 10 years from now, rather than where it stands today. And that's where the Rocket Lab story becomes particularly compelling. Imagine a future where thousands of additional satellites are launched annually. Imagine increasing demand for national security infrastructure. Imagine greater commercial activity in low Earth orbit. Imagine governments around the world investing heavily in space capabilities. In that environment, a company with proven launch expertise, growing manufacturing capabilities, strong government relationships, and an expanding product portfolio could be exceptionally well positioned. Rocket Lab appears to be building toward exactly that future, and perhaps the most exciting part is that the company is still in growth mode. It is still expanding. It is still adding capabilities. It is still entering new markets. Many of the opportunities investors are excited about today have not yet reached their full potential. That doesn't guarantee success. Nothing in investing does. But it does suggest that Rocket Lab's growth story may be far from finished. For investors seeking exposure to the rapidly expanding space economy, Rocket Lab represents one of the most intriguing companies in the sector. It combines innovation, government partnerships, recurring revenue opportunities, manufacturing expertise, and launch capabilities under one roof. Few companies in the industry can make that claim. And if management successfully executes on its long-term vision, today's business could look dramatically larger in the years ahead. If this resonates with you, you're exactly who this channel is for. Please, hit the like button, share the video, and leave your thoughts in the comments. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on the next important financial investing update. Remember to do your own research before you invest in any stock. Now let's move on to the second stock. If Rocket Lab is helping build the highways to space, then this next company is helping turn the information collected in space into something incredibly valuable. The company is Planet Labs, ticker symbol PL. And while it doesn't get nearly as much attention as some of the larger names associated with the space industry, its stock has quietly become one of the market's biggest winners. Over the past year alone, shares of Planet Labs have climbed approximately 1,017%. Yes, you heard that correctly, more than 1,000%. Now, whenever a stock rises that dramatically, investors naturally wonder whether the opportunity has already passed. But to answer that question, we need to understand what Planet Labs is actually building. At its core, Planet Labs operates one of the largest fleets of Earth observation satellites in existence. These satellites continuously capture images of the planet's surface, generating an enormous stream of visual data. But Planet Labs is not simply taking pictures. The company is creating a constantly updated digital record of activity across the globe, and that distinction is important. Traditional satellite imagery often suffers from delays. Images are captured, transmitted, processed, analyzed, and eventually delivered to customers. By the time the information arrives, the situation on the ground may already have changed. Planet Labs approaches the problem differently. Its satellite network captures imagery daily, and in some situations even multiple times throughout the day. This creates a living map of the world that customers can monitor in near real time. That capability opens the door to a remarkable number of applications. Governments can track military activity, intelligence agencies can monitor strategic locations, farmers can assess crop health, energy companies can inspect infrastructure, environmental organizations can monitor deforestation, insurance companies can evaluate natural disasters, and businesses can gain insights into economic activity around the world. The common thread is information. And in today's economy, information is often one of the most valuable assets a company can provide. What makes Planet Labs particularly interesting is how it is combining satellite imagery with artificial intelligence. This is where the story becomes much bigger than satellites. The company has partnered with NVIDIA to deploy advanced AI chips on its Pelican 4 satellite. That may sound like a technical detail, but it has potentially enormous implications. Traditionally, satellite data is collected in orbit and then sent back to Earth for processing. That process takes time. Planet Labs is working toward analyzing data directly in space. Instead of waiting hours for information to be processed, customers could receive actionable insights within minutes. Think about the difference. If a wildfire starts spreading, emergency responders may gain critical information faster. If military activity changes unexpectedly, governments may receive earlier warning. If a farmer detects crop stress, corrective action can be taken sooner. In many situations, speed creates value. And Planet Labs is positioning itself to become a leader in delivering that speed. This is one of the reasons why the company's technology has attracted growing interest from government agencies. One major achievement was securing a prime contractor role on the SHIELD program through the Missile Defense Agency. Under this initiative, Planet Labs will use AI-driven detection systems to help provide warning capabilities for defense applications. This is significant because it highlights a growing trend within the space industry. Governments are no longer looking only for satellites. They are increasingly looking for intelligence. The ability to rapidly detect, analyze, and respond to threats is becoming a critical national security priority. And Planet Labs is developing tools specifically designed to address that need. The company's momentum is not limited to the United States. Planet Labs has also secured agreements with countries including Sweden, Japan, and Germany. Collectively, these contracts are worth more than $500 million. That level of international demand demonstrates that the company's capabilities are attracting attention far beyond a single market. And it further strengthens Planet Labs' position as a key technology partner for allied nations seeking advanced monitoring and intelligence solutions. What I find especially compelling about Planet Labs is the scalability of the business model. Building the satellite network requires substantial investment, but once the infrastructure is in place, additional customers can often be added without proportional increases in cost. That creates the possibility for operating leverage over time. In simple terms, revenue can potentially grow faster than expenses. For long-term investors, those are often the types of businesses worth watching closely. Another fascinating aspect of the Planet Labs story involves a project that sounds like science fiction, but is increasingly becoming a realistic possibility. The company has partnered with Alphabet to develop prototype solar-powered satellites designed for orbital data centers. Think about what that could mean. As artificial intelligence continues expanding, demand for computing infrastructure is exploding. Data centers require enormous amounts of electricity. Power costs continue to rise. Cooling systems consume vast resources. Now imagine a future where certain forms of computing infrastructure operate in orbit, powered directly by solar energy. It sounds futuristic today, but many technologies that seem futuristic eventually become reality. Whether these efforts ultimately become major commercial opportunities remains to be seen. However, the fact that Planet Labs is participating in projects of this nature demonstrates management's willingness to think far beyond the company's current business. And sometimes the largest opportunities emerge from innovations that initially appear speculative. When evaluating Planet Labs as an investment, I think it's important to remember that this is not simply a satellite company, it is an intelligence company. Its product is not hardware, its product is insight. The satellites are merely the tools used to gather information. The real value comes from transforming that information into something customers can act upon. That distinction matters because information services often carry attractive economics. Customers who rely on critical intelligence tend to renew subscriptions. They integrate the data into their workflows. They become dependent on the service. And over time, switching becomes more difficult. Those dynamics can create powerful competitive advantages. Planet Labs appears to be building exactly that kind of ecosystem. Another reason investors are paying attention is the broader growth of the space economy itself. As more satellites enter orbit, more data becomes available. As artificial intelligence improves, more insights can be extracted from that data. As governments prioritize national security, demand for real-time intelligence increases. And as businesses become more data-driven, the value of timely information continues rising. Planet Labs sits at the center of all these trends. That positioning could prove incredibly valuable over the next decade. Of course, investors should remain realistic. A stock that rises more than 1,000% in a year is going to face heightened expectations. The company must continue executing. Revenue growth must continue. Partnerships must deliver results, and management must demonstrate that it can convert technological leadership into long-term shareholder value. Those are important considerations. But when I step back and look at the bigger picture, Planet Labs appears to be operating in one of the most exciting areas of the modern economy. The world is generating more data than ever before. Organizations need better ways to understand that data, and Planet Labs is building a platform designed to turn images from space into actionable intelligence on Earth. That is a powerful concept. And if management executes successfully, the company's future could be significantly larger than its current size suggests. Taken together, both Rocket Lab and Planet Labs represent different approaches to investing in the expanding space economy. Rocket Lab focuses on the infrastructure needed to access space. Planet Labs focuses on extracting value from the information gathered in space. One helps build the ecosystem, the other helps monetize it, and both are benefiting from long-term trends that may continue for years. This video is brought to you by Value Stocks Investing Master Course. If you're looking to grow your wealth by investing in solid, undervalued stocks but not sure where to start, I created the Value Stocks Investing Master Course to teach you how to identify great companies, make smart investment decisions, and build a portfolio that lasts. Click the link in the description and pinned comments to get the course today and take control of your financial future. Before we wrap up, here's something worth thinking about. The space economy is still in its early innings. Many of the technologies being developed today could become foundational infrastructure for the global economy tomorrow. That doesn't mean every company will succeed, but it does mean that identifying the right businesses early could be incredibly rewarding for patient investors. If you want exclusive stock tips, in-depth analysis, real-time trade alerts, and free investing guides, Join the Stocks Galore Patreon today and take your investing game to the next level. Our members get full in-depth analysis on most of the stocks mentioned here. Head over to patreon.com/stocksgalore and become part of our growing community of smart investors. Link is in the description. Now I'd like to hear from you. Which company do you think has the stronger long-term competitive advantage? Rocket Lab with its launch services and growing space systems business, or Planet Labs with its AI-powered satellite intelligence platform? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Do not forget to like the video, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe so you do not miss the next important investing update. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.